Yeah, so let's talk about being a scanner. If you haven't heard this term before, I've been working with scanners for a long time. I've been a scanner my whole life. And you might have seen the list of questions I asked, which identified you as a scanner. So let me go through some of them, just in case. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Victoria. Try and ask yourself the following questions. I'm reading from Fuck What Let's Play, because there's a section in here about the Scanner's Guide to Success. So I'm going to base what I'm talking about on this. Try asking yourself the following questions. Are you interested in lots of different and seemingly unrelated things? Are you fascinated by something different every week? Does the thought of concentrating on one topic, skill, or job for very long horrify you? Do you start lots of projects but move on before you finish them? I'd also add to that, do you love learning for the sake of learning? Yeah, are you good at starting things rather than finishing things? Does anybody here identify with that? I'm guessing if you're here, you probably do identify with probably several of those. And I know that's me as well. And I wrote this section, new section in my book, Fuck What Let's Play, because I used to run this event called Scanners Night. And that started in about 2000 and, I can't remember what it was, 2005, 6, 7, sometime around there. And I ran it for about 5 years. And it was a London live event where we had speakers coming along and talking about what it's like to be a scanner. Lots of people saying yes now. Graham saying yes. You're definitely a scanner, Graham. And we'd have people talk about what it's like to have too many ideas, not be able to focus, be good at starting things, not finishing things, how to manage your time, how to make a living as a scanner. So I learned a lot about it. And I also learned from my own experience managing myself and from clients. But I noticed something interesting in running that event. Do we notice that you're reading upside down when we should be listening? I think it would be left to right, not upside down. It's the right way around for me. Just for some reason, flipping the camera for you. So I noticed when I was running Scanners Night that some people would come back, come to one event and then come a few months later and they'd done something amazing and they put this project out into the world, made a film, started a business, launched some course or something like that. And then some people would come repeatedly to Scanners Night and feel it would seem like they never moved forward. So, like a couple of years down the line, they were still stuck in a job they didn't enjoy, not getting paid very much, feeling miserable and frustrated and not moving forward. And so I took an interest in what's the difference between those two categories of scanner. And I think there is the productive scanner and the unhelpful scanner, and the unproductive scanner. And so what I want to give you here is the Scanner's Guide to Success, and how to manage yourself, manage all your ideas, so that you can be successful with them and not just end up in the same place 1, 2 years from now, still miserable and unsatisfied. The good news is I think this is the age of the scanner. So the scanner, by the way, the word term scanner was originally coined by Barbara Sher, but other people have also called it, they've called it being a polymath, being a Renaissance man or Renaissance woman. Some people, every year somebody brings out a new book about this concept and it's a hit. And one was called Slashes. Every year there's a new one. I can't even remember the names of all of them. One was called Generalist. I know some of the authors of these books as well. So this concept comes around a lot. And the reason why I think there's a lot of interest in it right now is because actually I think scanners have an advantage. I think scanners they can learn quickly. We can learn quickly. We can move quickly when we want to. We're very creative and we can synthesize lots of information and put it into a form that other people can appreciate. So we make, we're good curators and we're good creators. And if you think of people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, they are all people who have lots of different interests. They can indulge everything they're interested in. They've made themselves, all of those three people made themselves billionaires while having very, very varied careers. Multi-potential, was the other term. Yeah, from Emile, what's her name? So the Scanner's Guide to Success. I've got 7 points for you. And the first one is choose a project or business that will retain your interest. So if you're going to pick a career or a business to focus most of your time on, make sure it's one that has variety and learning built in. And if you can find your way to use your skill to come up with new ideas, to do research without having to do all the implementation yourself, then that's even better. So scanners make great journalists, comedians, cultural commentators, consultants, public speakers, researchers, inventors, entrepreneurs, anything that maximizes the ability to learn quickly, make creative connections, communicate what you found, and move on. And it also means that you get a lot of variety. So when I was in management consulting, for instance, or technical consulting, every project would be completely different. And so you find a lot of scanners, a lot of ENFPs and Myers-Briggs inside management consultancy, inside advertising, inside places like that where they're going to get that kind of variety. And if you're choosing a business, choose a business that's, I call it sometimes a TARDIS business. It looks simple on the outside, but on the inside it has infinite variety and can take you any place you want to go. So the Ideas Lab is that for me. It allows me to work with hundreds of people per year and help them with their ideas. And that means there's continual variety. This morning I spoke to, sometimes the variety is insane. Like on the Pioneer program at the moment, I was talking to two people this morning. One person runs an engineering company specializing in finite element analysis and have a background in physics and stuff. So we could kind of connect to it. And I used to work for an engineering company really early on in my career in defense. And then the next person I spoke to was doing careers coaching, which is much closer to what I've been doing more recently. And, talk about variety, that satisfies me. So what's the version for you where your variety is built into what you're doing? Number 2 on the Scanner's Guide to Success is look for the theme in your passions. What is the common theme behind the things you love, no matter how different they seem, because there often is one. So there's an example in the book of Sarah Wyler, and I've posted in this group, you can find a little 1-minute clip of her on the Ideas Lab podcast, talking about her career and particularly about how she discovered the idea for Power of Uke. So she now teaches ukulele to big corporations like Google, other blue chip brands, and that can pay really well when you're training inside corporations. But what's interesting is she has so many interests because she's run creative retreats. She writes comedy songs. She runs a comedy club, which she started on one of my courses several years ago. It's called Rye Laughs because it's in Peckham Rye, and it's until the pandemic. It was really successful. She had some really good comics on there. I went to the very first night, but it happened in the 30-day challenge, like within the 30 days of this program I used to run. And it was a good evening. And she's had really big names. So she does that. She does like these kind of, comedy songs. She does all sorts of stuff. But the theme that she discovered was, how does she describe it? Creating a space for people to thrive while also having fun, whether that's comedy club, teaching ukulele in a corporate workshop, or creative retreat. For me, the common theme is the love of the new. I love things that are new and different and unusual, and I have a thing for the slightly odd, as you can probably tell. So, I love helping people who are doing something unusual, whether that is careers coaching. So the chap Chris I was talking to today on a one-to-one call has got a really interesting idea for his group program that I think is just nice. And with Gordon, who's runs the engineering firm, we're exploring 4 possible interesting ways he could go, which will very him as well. So what is the theme and your passions behind it? And if you're not used to thinking in this way, you might find that, you might think there's no connection, but you can often find it. Mitchie was there at that first comedy night that I was talking about, but yeah, you were there as well. Did you? You didn't perform, did you? Because a few of the people on the 30-day challenge performed. Jacqueline says, yeah, the first time I read about ENFPs, I couldn't stop laughing. Turns out I'm over 80% on each continuum. So not going to change anytime soon. Yeah. Number 3, consider creating a business that combines your interests. Some of the happiest scanners have combined several of their interests into their own business. I've done this myself, of course, with the Ideas Lab, as I've just mentioned, because it combines my interest in creativity, psychology, writing, online marketing, technology, design, online user experience, and the innovation process. All of that, these are all my interests. There's very little I'm interested in, despite my breadth of interest, but I can't cram into my business. Music is possibly one of the things that I don't cram into it, but that's okay. It's okay to have some hobbies. So can you create a business that combines everything that you're passionate about, or several of them? And there's a really interesting concept here. There's a really interesting concept from Scott Adams, who is the creator of the Dilbert cartoon. And he talks about talent stacking, which is a great concept. And what he says is, if you take several things you're good at, not brilliant, but just good at, and you combine them in a stack, and you pursue an idea that uses all of those things, now you become something very rare. You become, 1 in a million almost. So the example with him is, he'd been in a corporate environment. He'd worked in a cubicle. And so he knew what it was like to work in the corporate environment and all the stupid things that happened. He had an interest for business, which helped him to think like an entrepreneur around his cartoons and also the other things he's done. He's done lots of businesses. He's funny, but he's not the funniest guy you'll ever meet. He can draw just about, but he's not the best artist you'll ever meet. Not even the best, cartoon artist. But by stacking all those things together, he really, he created what became one of the most popular comic strips of all time and got syndicated into just all around the world and made him, at one point he would say, by any measure, the most successful cartoonist alive at that moment. And I think that talent stack concept is a very powerful idea. So when I'm doing stuff that combines my, there's probably a couple of things I would say I'm brilliant at. I'm not sure I'm quite bold enough to say what they are, but out of that list I gave, there's a bunch of things I'm good at. And you combine a bunch of things you're good at and you end up with something really amazing that other people can't compete on. 4th key for success as a scanner is to know your cash cow. So if you're going to have several different income streams and loosely related projects and ventures, probably one of them will be the one that makes you the most money. That is your cash cow. And as long as you don't take your eye off it, because an amazing number of scanners will hit on something that they enjoy doing that makes money, and then they kind of don't do it again. Or they do it, they do like a little bit of that, and then they spend 80% of their time on other things that don't make them any money. And then they wonder why they're broke. So the the solution to that is to notice like there's something that really that works, and then you can do lots of other things alongside just for fun, just to indulge your interest. So my cash cow is the Pioneer program because it's my main thing. Also, I do a private client mentorship. That's also another cash cow. And then I can do other things alongside that, which don't have to pay because the other things are. So I did a project a couple of years ago where I created a course about dating and relationships because it's an area I wanted to learn about. So I got lots of experts in, and it ended up being one of the highest rated courses ever. It's called the Love Challenge. You can see it at lovechallenge.info. You can buy it. And I'm not going to make that a mainstream thing that I do, but it got me created a lot of buzz around what I was doing. It was interesting. It taught me something about entrepreneurship. It developed my relationships with people like Psychologist Magazine, because Susie Walker got involved, the editor. And we made a podcast around it, a very professional quality, which I hadn't done before, which was about the Love Challenge and about me going on a date. So I could do wild, wacky things where I went on a date and had a microphone and was recorded. The woman who was dating me was new and she volunteered. She had a mic as well. There was me, the woman who was dating me, and our sound engineer at a dinner table eating dinner. And I love doing crazy crap like that because it entertains me. It's fun. And if you've got a business that works around it, but you've got a cash cow, which is making the money, even if those wacky projects don't make as much money, it's not the end of the world. So I gave the example of Sarah Wyler, and she has lots of interesting projects. She's still doing comedy videos and stuff. She might be in this group. But she makes most of her money still from the Power of You, or did until lockdown. I don't know, haven't caught up with her since the pandemic kicked off. So she has one cash cow, and as long as she doesn't take her eye off the ball on that, then she can do all sorts of crazy stuff as she wants to do just for fun. So that's about knowing your cash cow. Fifth point, and by the way, feel free to post questions here if you want to ask me anything about being a scanner, and I'll see if I can cover it at the end. Number 5, become T-shaped. So a breadth of knowledge is a very valuable thing. So for instance, it makes me, there aren't many people who have my breadth as a business coach. I mean, you can come to me with almost anything and I'll probably be able to do something valuable with you. And like I say, that entertains me, and feels a bit like higher wire. What do you call that? Tightrope walking. When I have my first one-to-one with somebody in a field I know absolutely nothing about, or relatively little about, and then I always find a way to give them something really valuable, and that breadth really helps me in that sense. But I think that if you only have breadth, it is very difficult to make a living. So what you want to shoot for is to be T-shaped. So in other words, capital T, like that. And your breadth is across the top and your depth is down here. And so it means that you have a breadth of interests across here, a breadth of things you know about. And then there's one thing you really know a lot about, but you have real expertise in. Sometimes I talk about this in terms of a craft, because people say, well, I've got brilliant ideas, I've got loads of ideas. Can I just sell my ideas? Bad news, no, you can't, unfortunately. So if you want to go to somebody and say, hey, look, I've got loads of ideas, I can help you with my ideas. That doesn't work, unfortunately. I've tried it, and many people have, and it basically just doesn't work. You have to sell them something that's valuable. You have to sell them a result. And the result is often produced by having a craft or a deep expertise in something. So an example would be, you love learning about 1 billion different things, but you can write about them So you become a journalist, or you become a blogger, or you could be a YouTuber. So you could do videos about a massive wide range of topics. You could do a podcast. Look at Joe Rogan. Sold his podcast, you know, did a deal with Spotify, estimated to be worth at least $100 million, and possibly more. And he just talks to everyone he's interested. He talks to people about MMA, mixed martial arts, which I have no interest in whatsoever. Then he'll talk to somebody about crazy UFO conspiracies. And then he'll talk to somebody like Elon Musk. And then he'll talk to somebody who's a stand-up comedian, because he's a comedian as well. So he could do whatever he wants, and he still makes, I mean, I think the estimate was he was making tens of millions a year from the podcast. I don't know. I can't remember, but it was certainly millions per year before he did that $100 million deal. But the deep expertise he's got is in podcasting, because he's been running it for 10 years. People forget that about Joe Rogan. He started really early, and he just did it because he wanted to do it, and he stuck at it. And he's created his own style. Some people hate him, by the way. So if you hate him, it doesn't matter. You can still learn something from what he's done. Somebody the other day was telling me he was a terrible human being because he spreads conspiracy theories, which he does spread conspiracy theories, which are stupid. But overall, I quite like his interviews. So that's an example of being T-shaped. So you could get good at writing. You could get good at design. So like, you've got ideas, but now you can design them. You can create a brand for somebody, or design, or a website. You could be, what was the other example that was down here? You could be a public speaker. Like I say, YouTuber, podcaster. I would say that now one of my deep expertise things, apart from, I think therapy is now a deep expertise, because I did some of the training that a psychotherapist does, 6 years of professional development courses in psychotherapy. And so I have a real expertise in working with therapists and counselors. But I now have a deep expertise in marketing, which has developed over the past 15 years. And so that's really valuable. So what I want to do is I just want to share my ideas with people. But like I say, you can't sell ideas. So what I do is I share results, which is I can get your business or your new product or service off the ground better and make more money with less effort. And, here's my track record. You can kind of read about on my website. And that works. And then I get to use all my ideas, which makes me happy. So think about what your T-shaped thing could be. What could be what's that vertical bar that makes you really valuable to people aside from your breadth? Number 6 of 7 on the Scanner's Guide to Success: follow through on the things that matter. Now, this is where I differed on Barbara, who sadly died last year. We didn't see eye to eye on this. She kind of told people it doesn't matter if you never finish anything. It does if you want some measure of success, meaning, income. It's difficult to feel really satisfied in life, even if you don't need the money, if you don't finish anything. I agree with her that you don't need to finish everything you start. You don't need to finish every book you start reading. You don't need to finish every project. I remember learning when I was, before I moved to London 20 more years ago, I was in Nottingham, and I did an evening class in Japanese. And I learned Japanese because I'd met this Japanese woman, and I'd been to see her in Tokyo. And I got really interested in my language, and I'd always have this sort of passion for unusual things. And Japan was as far away from European culture as I could think of. And my uncle, when I was 5 years old, bought me a Japanese dictionary that fascinated me. So I learned to count to 10 in Japanese. At the same time as I was learning to count to 10 in English. And so I had this passion for Japanese. So I did a year, I think, of Japanese classes, and got to kind of holiday Japanese, so I could like book a hotel in Japanese. I can't remember much right now. And then I went, what do I do next? I went, oh, counseling skills. So I went from Japanese to counseling skills. Now, to normal people who are not scanners, they'll just go like, what is the connection with that? And ditto, people say that about my career, because I went from consultancy and media asset management in large broadcasters, like the BBC. So I was consulting to the BBC on technical strategy, on video databases, to whatever it is you call me now, business coach, broadly speaking, an author. And to me, that's a very natural progression, because I was always that person that had all those interests. And so for you, that might be the case too. But so you don't need to, like I did one term I went from astrophysics to counseling skills, she said, Jennifer, brilliant, love it. Yeah, so I got quite an interest in physics because I studied physics at college. I still read books occasionally, little light-hearted books about quantum physics because it's so interesting. But the thing is, it's okay to abandon Japanese after 1 year. I don't need to. I didn't want to become the world's best. I didn't want to become fluent in Japanese. I had no interest in that. I just wanted to know why it was so different. And I became fascinated in how language is culture. So language embodies culture. And I'm fascinated in how different people can have a completely different view of the world and completely different habits and cultures, and yet no one be wrong, if you see what I mean. So it's like, it's just a different way of being. And that fascinated me, and language was part of it. You know, the fact that Japanese has 4 or 6 levels of politeness for every verb is like, that tells you something about Japan as a culture. And English doesn't. So, but you do need to follow through on some things, because if you don't, you are forever at square one. If nothing you do gets finished. You have to ship, right? Seth Godin writes about this. You have to ship things. In fact, that's why I created this course, the 30-day challenge that ran for about 5 or 6 years. We had 1,300 people take it, and it made the company quite a lot of money. And it was great fun to run, but it was basically teaching people how to ship. Meaning, put something out into the world you care about and dare to share it with others. That was basically what the challenge was all about. There's probably some people here who took the challenge, and it's a very powerful thing to learn, and it brings up lots of issues, and you have to deal with your perfectionism. Maybe I'll do a Facebook Live about perfectionism at some point. Perfectionism and procrastination. You have to deal with it to get over it, to finish it, to make it good enough to share, and be willing for some people not to like it, or for you to get negative feedback. And I think some scanners really are using the scanner label as an excuse to not ship anything. And if you do that, you won't get anywhere. You have to stick stuff out into the world and then iterate. That's what my second book is about, called Screw Work, Break Free. It's about just take a shot at it, put it out into the world, see what people make of it, make it better, and go again. So get into the habit of following through on the things that matter. Last point of the Scanner's Guide to Success is to only launch one project at a time. So whenever people are on my courses, whether it's the free 5-day standout challenge or the Pioneer program or whatever it might be, when they go, can I choose 2 ideas? And I go like, no, categorically no. Because you can only launch one at a time. It's like, I worked with this guy, Mark Forster, who's a time management coach. He's written some good books. And he said, it's like plate spinning. And if you ever watch an old-fashioned plate spinner who spins plates on the end of like broomstick handles, well, you'll notice that they're only looking at one plate at a time. So they get one spinning, and then they They spin one plate, and then they don't leave it alone until they can see it spinning comfortably on the top of this pole. Then they go to the next thing, and they get that spinning, and they're only thinking about that. Then we go on to the next one, and then we go back and check the first one, and they get that going again because it will have slowed down. And then they go to the second one, the third one, then we do the fourth one. And by doing that, you can end up spinning 5 or 10 plates. But you can't do it if you get 3 plates at a time, chuck them on the top of broomstick handles, and just do this. Like what happens is they all smash on the floor. So don't do that. What you need to do is, you've heard that old cliche that rockets use 80% of their fuel it's a coaching cliche, to just to leave the atmosphere. In fact, I think it's probably more than that. But just getting off the ground is the hardest bit. And then once it sort of starts to exit the Earth's atmosphere, then you don't need you don't need very much fuel. And once you're in outer space, you need very little. So what you should do is, if you want to launch multiple things, launch one, get it working really well to the point where it can sustain, and then start introducing other things. So otherwise you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. So that's my Scanner's Guide to Success, 7 ideas. Let me know what questions you've got. Reaching escape velocity is the hardest bit, says Jennifer. That's right. I would struggle getting down to 2, as I said, says Rich. I know why I'm broke. Yeah, choose one. And you know, if you don't have a cash cow right now, which I think might be your case, Rich, just work on a cash cow and just go, okay, what is one thing I do that I'm going to enjoy, that uses really good skills of mine, and that I think people will pay for. I can see there's some money for it right now. And that's either, because we're in a particular weird moment in history, either that's a moment, because there are things you could clean up on right now while we're still in lockdown in the UK. There are things you can clean up on, but people want to pay for as we open up. And then there are things people want to pay for when we start to get back to some sort of new normal, whatever that is. And each of those different phases have different market demands. And if you manage to get the right proposition, this is the kind of stuff we do on this Pioneer program that I run. If you get the right proposition at the right moment, you can just make a load of cash really quickly. So for instance, when everyone starts going back into the office, what do they need? What do companies need? There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff they need that they did not need 1 year ago. There's a whole bunch of things between health stuff, safety stuff, mental health awareness for staff, redundancy care for people they're letting go, but you go in there and there'll be a bubble which you can actually make a load of cash out of while doing something useful. I'm not sounds heartless, but basically I'm saying there's a need. People want this stuff. If you can deliver it, you can go out there and make a load of money. That's one way of getting a cash cow off the ground. Jennifer says, you have to pick it up and take it all the way to the bank to get paid, not get distracted by something else. Yeah, that's easy. What was it called? There's a phrase, take it all the way to the bank. And I think that was, I can't remember because that's a business coach, guru type person who said it. It's quite well known, I think. Might be a property investor, I'm not sure. But I got it off Daniel Wagner, who's a coach. And the phrase was, take it all the way to the bank, because otherwise you don't get paid. Louise says, took me a long time to realise it was perfectionism that was causing the problem. Just thought I was rubbish at things. Yeah, it's really important. You've got to learn how to manage your perfectionist tendency, because it will destroy you. I'm just looking to see if we've got any questions. Jacqueline says, the one plate spinning first sustainability before moving on is a fab reminder. Yes, I'm really getting there right now. Thanks to you, John Williams. The Pioneer program is really paying off. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, give us an update, Jacqueline, because I love the stuff that you're doing. Michael says, I'm about to launch a podcast, so I'm going to listen again to Joe Rogan's podcast for learning purposes, although I'm in the camp that can't stand him. Well, don't listen to him then. I mean, it's worth listening to one episode of Joe Rogan, just so you see how he does it, because there's something very interesting he does, which is he hits go sometimes halfway through the conversation that, you know, they started saying hello, and he just goes like, let's just go live. And they go live. He doesn't edit anything at all. He writes no show notes. He writes no description, almost no description, selling you on listening to the episode. He just says, this is the name of the person. He does this. That is it. So in terms of building a following, there is something to learn from Joe Rogan about building a following, even if you don't like him. But probably better to follow somebody else who you do like, but who you'd want to emulate. The progress from the first one is amazing. Oh yeah, is that the first podcast? Yeah, I should listen to that. I should Google Joe Rogan's first podcast. Yeah. So any questions on being a scanner before we finish? Was that useful? What was the thing you're going to take away from that and actually pay some attention to? His first one is terrible. This is Joe Rogan's podcast. How do you make yours different, memorable? The podcast you're talking about. By being you. So really, what I'm learning about podcasts is that I think you have to show yourself. If you bland yourself out, it's really not going to work. You've got to be, I think, super niched podcasts will work well right now because there are so many podcasts out there. If you say, you know, the business podcast, it's like, oh my God, you're competing against 1 billion different people. So if you say instead, like Alice Sheridan, for instance, did a course of mine years ago. She runs a podcast called Art Juice, and it's for artists. And she and a friend who's also an artist, they just talk about being an artist and what they've learned from their course that they run with people helping other artists. And they'll talk about anything, and they are really authentic, and they've got a really big, passionate following as a result. So it's niched to amateur artists, painters mostly, but they're very real. And I think that combination is a very good one. A super niche and very authentic. My friend Jerry Hyde's got an interesting podcast. He's very much a scanner, but he's got a kind of feel to it, which is kind of rock and roll. He's into kind of psychoactive drugs and music and creativity. And he's a psychotherapist. He brands himself. I think it might have been me who came up with the phrase, I'm not sure. It called him the most dangerous psychotherapist in the world. Most dangerous therapist in the world. Ursel says, you're going to find your cash cow, which is cool. Hannah says, ship one thing at a time. This is what people are taking away. I'm going to force myself to pick one project to do right now. Get on with a vertical from the T-shape. Yeah, that's a good point, says Libla. Become T-shaped, says James. Katie says, just finishing a neuroscience course that is going in my e-course that I started writing last year but didn't finish as I thought it was a bit thin. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, if you think your course is a bit thin, because I often help people write courses, super niche it. So instead of saying, I'm going to teach you how to, make your brain brilliant or something that's very broad and a bit woolly, you say, like, I'm going to teach you one thing. I'm going to teach you, how to program your brain for happiness, or how to program, something that's really, really specific. You go, oh, okay, I get what that is. Okay. I'm looking at questions here. The competent stacking, yeah, says Hannah. The talent stacking concept from Scott Adams. He talks about it a lot on Twitter, often refers to it. So, if you want to know more about scanners and how to be successful as a scanner, this is basically what this book is. Although it doesn't say it on the cover. It's very much designed for people like us, people who are have lots of interests, creatively minded, love doing new things and ideas, want to have fun with their work as well as make really good money. It takes you from deciding what you want to do all the way up to how to make really good money out of it, including the second half of the book is all about marketing. We're following along in this group with the structure of this book. You don't need to have the book to enjoy what we're doing in the group. But if it's useful to you, do get it. It's a really good read as well. It's very enjoyable, people tell me. And this was W.H. Smith Business Book of the Month. At the end of last year, it was in the top 10 on Amazon in its category. So, and it's also, this is a new edition of a book that's now being translated into 10 languages around the world, and has been recommended by the Sunday Times, the Financial Times, Marketing Week, and numerous other publications. So it's a pretty solid choice. That's my plug for my book. Otherwise, what we're going to do is, now the challenge from here, if you're a scanner, is next week, we're talking about how to choose. And this is where it becomes painful for a scanner. So all of next week in the group, we are talking about the topic of how do you choose what to pursue, like whether you've got a business already and it's working and you want to redirect it, or you want to fire off a new product line or a new kind of income stream, or whether you're starting your own business and you're trying to decide what it should be, or what course you should launch, or what service, or whatever it might be. We're going to be talking about that all next week, so that should help you. So I think T-shape is my main takeaway, says Katie. Yeah, a few people talking about being T-shaped. Why is the book backwards? This has something to do with it. I never understood the logic, really, of when you use the front-facing camera, it reverses the camera. Why does it do that? Do clients know you will be a scanner, Rick Crockett? If you're offering what they... Oh, okay. What was Rick talking about? Okay. Are your books an Audible? Unfortunately not, Victoria. I keep bugging... I was just thinking this morning. None of them are, sadly. I keep bugging Pearson about, when are we going to do an Audible version? I don't mind recording it. And the problem is they're negotiating a bulk deal, I think. This is what screwed the Kindle version 10 years ago, which came out about a year late. They're doing a deal with Amazon, and you can imagine how hardball Amazon play with them. So I think that's what's going on. I don't know exactly, but it's something to do. They're trying to negotiate exactly what they get for Audible books. And that is delayed until they've sorted that out. They're not, I don't think they're doing anything. We're not signing up any new Audible books. So, but I'm very keen to get it done as soon as possible. The next best thing is for you to stick around in the group and tune in for these kind of lives and stuff, because it's even better because it's me, live and in person. Ursula says, thanks so much. You were awesome. Oh, thank you. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Have a great weekend. Join us next week for how to choose what to do next. That's our theme. And I'll see you in there. Cheers.